This is Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur with your host, Lynn Freest. Lynn will share ideas and expert advice from people that are walking in your shoes and living their encore careers, where they want and at the pace they want. You'll start a company of one with confidence and knowledge to live a fulfilled life of freedom and ease. Lynn is a coach and leadership consultant whose mission is to show senior leaders and experts how to start something refreshing and new after a full career in the corporate environment.
Welcome to this episode of the podcast, Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur. Today's episode is number 125, and it begins the new year, and it's titled Thoughts, Dreams, and Plans for 2022. Making the leap from being a corporate leader and expert into becoming a solopreneur can be daunting, but the rewards are great. You can work when you want, where you want, and do the work you love. I can be that guide and thinking partner for you as you develop your encore career. As your coach, I will help you go farther and faster based on what I've learned from being on this journey for several years. If you're having even thoughts about starting an encore career, please contact me. On with our episode, Thoughts, Dreams, and Plans for 2022. Again, this episode is about my list of intentions for 2022. And as many things, I think some author once said, man plans and God laughs. So obviously in the last year, things have been very different based on what our beginning of the year plans were. So again, I'll call this more my intentions for 2022. Again, I want to thank people for listening to my podcast, and I appreciate each and every one of you, and that you have chosen to spend your valuable time with me. Also, as I mentioned in the last session, I also really appreciate all the people I've had the great honor to interview, and I look forward to interviewing even more amazing people in the coming year. So to begin with, I plan to continue the podcast, but I do plan to add some video work with that. And how it will normally work is I'll record video and maybe put it on YouTube or some other channel, but then I'll have the podcast for people who still want to listen in this format. Another thing I hope to do is to spend some time being on other people's podcasts and share with other audiences what I think is my piece of value so other people can hear that even beyond the audience I serve today. The next big thing, I'm hoping to do a mini book. It will talk about my framework. It will talk about my thinking about this encore career business and basically, again, provide a different arena for people to, get their start working on their encore career. And just briefly, the framework, as I've sort of identified so far, as the first step would be work on your mindset, what you need to change about your thinking to build an encore career. The second would be creating your value proposition. You're going to want to sell your expertise to people. So how do you help them understand how it is you can help them? Third will be you have to adopt some new tech skills. There's obviously technology just like podcasting. In whatever your chosen profession is, I'm sure there's new technology there too. So you need to pay attention to that. Fourth, there's going to be the basic marketing and business skills. Again, as a corporate person, some of these things you simply didn't have to worry about. But now as a solopreneur, it's all going to be for you to figure out and somehow do. And fifth step is to form your practice plan. I think that's where we often don't spend enough time trying to think, okay, how am I actually going to start learning these new skills? How am I going to practice these things? So that's the fifth step in my framework. As I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm now viewing myself as having a portfolio career. And as one author has described it, the book I'm reading, I have a multicolored umbrella that's got different panels on it involving all the different aspects of my life. So we're going to have to see how that unfolds as we go through the year. The next intention I have is to develop more coaching, and coaching in a couple of different areas. First and most obvious, coaching around the encore career and how can I help people develop their encore careers. But then I've also always been coaching executives and leaders, so I'll probably try to see if there's any opportunities to do additional leadership coaching, even for people who aren't ready to start their encore career. Now, in the context of the encore career, my goal is to have 2 or 3 coaching groups going during the year. While I'm happy to do one-on-one coaching, in today's world, my experience working with groups, whether they're called masterminds or group coaching, is that you can learn a lot from your peers. People that are on a journey with you can help you just as much as me is serving as your guide. So I really hope to develop group coaching that allows people not only to learn from me, but also to learn from one another. The other thing is developing an encore career takes time. So we may begin with some group coaching around just putting together a blueprint to see where you're starting at and whether you even want to pursue this. But then, the whole thing is, I think it probably takes at least 3 months to really get into what it means to have an encore career. What are the elements that you're going to have to figure out and just get your feet wet and the foundation built. But then to really start having traction, it's going to take 6 to 12 months. And in that year, you'll probably develop a pretty good business. Recently I talked to a gentleman and he said, really to start a business from scratch, you really have to have at least 18 months. Well, again, with you that are experts and leaders already, it may take quite that long, but still, to have a business up and running smoothly so that you're comfortable with it, it could easily take you 12 months. Again, you're not necessarily starting out with a brand new idea like an entrepreneur who's in their 20s. You're starting out with a base of knowledge that you can build on. The next piece is, along with the podcast and the other activities, is I'm also going to continue to share my message through my email list. So I encourage people to sign up for that. I'll continue to share things, certainly on the podcast, and I'll also be additional things that I come across, articles, things that I've read, things that could be useful to you. And I may share those on LinkedIn, but also share them through my email list. So please consider signing up for that. Now, one of the, new themes that I want to add this year is one around well-being. Well-being is, I think, more and more important for us, especially as the boomers, the Gen Xers. We're going to be living longer, and we're going to hopefully be living healthier longer. But we probably have to be more intentional about the fact that we want to, have that health to go with our longer life. I think often as you come to the end of a career, you can be kind of burned out. You've been sprinting for 30 years, and you may not have really developed some good behaviors that would help you through your next 30 years. So I'm going to spend some time in the next year kind of thinking and talking about that. And then, as I mentioned, the first step in my framework is mindset. Again, as I've talked to people, interviewed people, it's really come about that, the mindset is the fundamental thing that we have to change. And sometimes it's not just awareness, but it's literally our habits of thinking. We're structured in a corporate life with certain, I'll say, assumptions, certain habits, certain perspectives. And you get the chance to recreate them, but you have to do the work to recreate them. And as well as, you'll tend to fall back on old mindsets, which will really hold you back. We want to be thinking about, we've had years of experience. We have things that we can really share that will help people. But then on the flip side of that, we're often going to be digital immigrants. Be prepared to learn what the new technologies are, whether it be the technologies around your career, your website, things like that, or the technologies that are in your particular focus or your area, like logistics or whatever it may be. So how can we help map that on to what are the new realities with technology in the world? People say it's a very different world today, and that's true. But again, as I've said many times, I read a book every day called The Daily Stoic. And these philosophers from ancient Rome and Greece were literally dealing with the same interpersonal problems we have today. So while the technology has changed, people have changed much more slowly. So many of the issues you learn to deal with in your career are still going to be issues out there, even though there's new technology involved. Another thing I think that we need to step outside just ourselves as we think about the value of our Encore career. We want it to be focused around helping new talent develop. We have seen the exceptions. We've seen things when they've gone wrong. We've recovered from mistakes. We've recovered from things that we could have done better. So we can pass all those insights on and help people not make some of the same mistakes that we did. They'll have to make their own mistakes to learn and grow, but we can at least point out some things that they can watch out for. I remember a story once when I was still in my full employment. I talked to a leader in a product development group, and he had hired a whole bunch of new project managers, all very talented people. But what he found was they were making a lot of mistakes. He said, we learned how not to make a long time ago. But again, there'd been a lot of turnover, not enough people to mentor the new project managers. And so they were new to the role. They were doing the very best they could, but they were making mistakes that he as a senior leader we could have done that better. And we knew how to do that better in the past. And I guess one of the final things I'm going to add in this year is a focus on process and the importance of process. Now, that's been literally my whole corporate background is creating process and creating frameworks and stuff. But I can see where I need more work on that. Again, I'm in a new business. I need to create new processes. And again, you as corporate leaders, corporate experts, even if you never even thought much about them, there were a lot of processes you did, a lot of processes you followed. You may have to create some new ones now, but it's one of those things where you'll need to, both adopt some new habits of action, But you'll also have to be focused on not creating a lot of sideways energy. And that where it gets into, you may have 20 new tools you could learn to use, but you need to pick out the one or two that are going to move you ahead right now and leave the others either to later or have somebody else do it for you. Just for me example, I need to get better at having a good, solid process for producing this podcast. I do it. I met a podcast every week, but I know I could have been more effective and efficient in doing it. So at the end of the day, my final intent or my overarching intent is I want to create a space and a place to help you develop your encore career. You get to work when you want, where you want, and do the work you love. And that's also, incidentally, where you can truly add the most value to people. So this is a summary of where I hope to go in 2022. And I really would welcome any insights, suggestions, questions, or even reviews. One of the things I want to explore is how I can get better feedback from you, my listeners, to see what it is that is resonating or maybe where I've just missed the topic entirely. I'd really like to hear from you. Again, welcome to the new year, 2022. Well, that concludes this episode. But remember, with an encore career, the rewards are great. You can work when you want, where you want, and do the work you love. And as your coach, I'll help you go farther and faster based on what I've learned from being on this journey for several years. You have the time, the attention, and the money to make this leap. So let me help you. If you're having even thoughts about starting an encore career, please contact me and we can talk. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.